It's wild to think, isn't it? How the entire future of a nation can just pivot on a single day. How the clash of armies on some forgotten field can just echo for centuries. Well, today we're diving into one of those moments, a battle that didn't just end a war. It literally helped forge a new Britain. And we're going to see it all through the story of one man and the secret war he was fighting inside his own body. All right, so let's set the scene. We're in the 1640s. Britain is ripping itself apart. The English Civil War. I mean, this isn't some distant political spat. This is a brutal, vicious conflict. It's neighbor against neighbor, brother against brother. The very soul of the kingdom is completely up for grabs. And at its heart, it all boiled down to one massive question. Who's in charge? You had King Charles I, who was absolutely convinced his power came directly from God, no questions asked. And then you had Parliament fighting for a permanent seat at the table, a real say in how the country was run. This wasn't just a debate, it exploded into all-out war. And that war reached its absolute make-or-break tipping point right here on these gentle slopes in Northamptonshire. One battle on one single summer's day was going to decide everything. This was the Battle of Naseby. You know, what's so fascinating is how close Parliament came to losing this whole thing. I mean, look at this timeline. At first, things looked absolutely dire. In the morning, Prince Rupert's royalist cavalry just completely smashes them. By midday, Parliament's forces are on the ropes, they're at the breaking point. But then, the tide turns. Oliver Cromwell's cavalry doesn't just win its own fight, they have the discipline to regroup and slam into the side of the royalist infantry. It was a tactical masterstroke that turned a near disaster into a total victory. So let's be super clear. Naseby wasn't just another battle. It was the battle. It completely shattered the king's main army, pretty much deciding the outcome of the First Civil War right there. And it proved the power of Parliament's radical new fighting force, this professional, disciplined unit called the New Model Army. This moment changed British history forever. And every revolutionary army needs a leader, right? The man who commanded this new model army, the architect of this incredible victory at Naseby, was, of course, celebrated as the hero of the hour. His name was Sir Thomas Fairfax. People called him Black Tom, and he was Parliament's commander-in-chief. He was known for his unbelievable bravery, always leading from the front, a true military genius who, honestly, seemed totally invincible. He's the architect of the victory, a fearless warrior, the perfect hero. Or was he? Yeah, it's time to ask, who was the real man behind that public image? Because behind the legend of Black Tom, there is a completely different story. And it's not a story of steel and strategy, but of sickness and suffering. It's a hidden truth that kind of changes how we see everything he accomplished. I mean, listen to this. His own chaplain wrote that in the heat of battle, Fairfax just transformed. He became something else, almost elevated, more like an angel than a man. He seemed to operate on a totally different plane from normal people. Okay, but then you see this. This is a letter from Fairfax, written years later. And in this shaky little note at the end, he's apologizing for not writing himself, saying he was, quote, very ill at this time. That invincible general, that angelic warrior, was in reality a man in constant chronic pain. And this gets to this really fascinating idea that historians call the politics of pain. The whole concept is that you can't just separate a leader's public actions from their private suffering. For Fairfax, his body wasn't just a vessel for his command. His chronic pain and his illnesses were directly shaping his decisions, both on the battlefield and off it. And the scale of what he was dealing with was just staggering. This wasn't just being tired from the war. We're talking his whole adult life, suffering from gout, agonizing kidney stones, and these chronic fevers. He had bouts of what they called melancholy back then, and that's all on top of these horrific war wounds. A musket ball to the wrist, a sword cut across his face, and a dangerous shot in the shoulder that nearly killed him. And he knew it himself. He saw the connection. Even before his biggest victory at Naseby, he wrote this letter basically saying the immense stress of command, the constant political fighting, it was, in his own words, impairing his health. The pressure of leading a nation at war was literally breaking his body. So this forces us to kind of re-examine the guy. Publicly, he's the fearless hero, right? But privately, his constant illness became a real factor in his career. It's interesting, historians point out that while his health never seemed to stop him on the battlefield, he often used it to get out of politically difficult situations, like really thorny army debates. So was it a convenient excuse, or was he just genuinely too unwell to handle the stress of it all? And this brings us to the crucial connection. The story of Fairfax's body is, in so many ways, the story of the nation itself. Victory in the Civil War came at a huge cost, not just in blood spilled on the battlefield, but in the toll it took on the very people who led it. And that personal cost became impossible to ignore in 1660. At the absolute peak of his power and fame, Fairfax did the unthinkable. He quit, he resigned, and his official reason wasn't political. It was deeply personal. He cited debilities both in body and mind. The man who won the war was now too broken by it to keep leading. And for the last 7 years of his life, all those accumulated pains and injuries just became completely debilitating. The war out on the battlefield might have been over, but the war inside his own body raged on, and it ended up confining him completely. And this is the tangible proof of that cost. This is Fairfax's wheelchair, one of the very first of its kind in England. The great cavalry commander, the angel on the battlefield, spent his final years unable to even walk. It's just a powerful, silent testament to the incredible price he paid for victory. So it really leaves us with this question, right? We love to celebrate the heroes and the big turning points of history. But when we understand the hidden human cost, the politics of pain, does it change how we see the whole story? What other great events in history were shaped not just by grand ideas, but by the sheer physical suffering of the people who actually lived through them?